was just a typical Monday. I came into the office, passed my secretary Toots, patted her on the rear end, went into my office and closed the door. Clean desk, nothing else. Went into my drawer and poured myself a scotch, ready to sit back in my chair and dream about things that was. Better days. Then Toots came in. She put a paper in front of me. Said someone wanted me to look into a name. And when I read that name, I knew it was going to be trouble. Why did it have to be Tanya?
You go, and it's a bunch of well-meaning white people. And the thing is, I don't want to make it seem like, oh, somebody watching this and be like, oh, you just hate white people. I don't fucking hate white people.
Hello there. Thank you all for watching. Before we get started, real quick, if you're enjoying my content, can you do me a favor and remember to put a like on videos such as this one? And also to subscribe if you want to help see this channel grow. I always do appreciate it, and I thank you. All right, so that woman you saw in the intro was Tanya Depass. Who is Tanya Depass? Well, we'll go into that in just a moment. But a tiny bit of background might be necessary to set the stage. You see, a little over a week ago, Wizards of the Coast released a statement that they were leveling up their creative process. What Wizards of the Coast was really saying in this release was that their creative process, ostensibly, as a result of the whole Spelljammer, Hidozi kerfuffle a few months ago, is now being held hostage to a nebulous group of cultural consultants. By the way, I did a video on that whole Hidozi issue, which I will link to at the end. But really, for a company as cowardly as Wizards of the Coast, it was only a matter of time before they gave over their creative process to the grifters in the so-called outrage movement. Wizards of the Coast has employed sensitivity readers in the past, and the results are things like the awful Strixhaven and Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel products. These supplements are objectively bad, in large part due to catering to the Twitterati, who seem to be angered by everything and everyone now. However, instead of being brought in on the back end, as was the case for products like Strixhaven, these same people will be in on the creative process from the start. Hence the pivot to the cultural consultants title. So this is confirmation of something that we all sort of knew, that Wizards of the Coast is a company full of spineless twerps who want the next version of D&D to be a sanitized amalgamation of ideas from average minds at best, and perhaps slightly sinister ones at worst. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, what if I told you that Wizards of the Coast previously used an admittedly prejudiced and misleading grifter as a sensitivity reader? I don't know for sure if this person is going to be used as one of the new cultural consultants going forward, but it would not surprise me in the least if she was. The person I'm referring to is none other than Tanya Depass, the woman you saw in the intro. If that name sounds slightly familiar to you, I actually did a video of her in the early days of my channel. Not for being a sensitivity reader per se, but actually for almost realizing that the, let's say, the number of bleeps that you have gotten might not equate to full health, especially when she came back from brushing shoulders with 50,000 people at Gen Con, if you get my meaning. So enough said about that. But Tanya has actually made a living being a streamer and a diversity consultant. She runs a, quote, nonprofit, unquote, called I Need Diverse Games. Stick around towards the end of this video because I got some juicy information on that organization that you're going to want to see. She appears on the awful D&D live play Rivals of Waterdeep. Thoroughly unwatchable. And now has her own sci-fi streaming game called Motherlands RPG on Twitch. I have not checked that one out, but I am not holding out much hope that it's any better. Essentially, she is the Al Sharpton of the gaming community. She claims to have been oppressed growing up in, of all places, Chicago. Not exactly MAGA country, despite what Jussie Smollett wants you to think. Whenever someone wants an opinion about RPGs being racist, she will show up with her hand out and her mouth open. Like a lot of people I choose to profile on this channel, she also is kind of a hateful, miserable person. Just look at her Twitter and her over 300 and 20,000 tweets. This girl is addicted to Twitter. And she does not seem to like white people at all. She claims the tired leftist mantra of being incapable of being racist against white people. But kudos to her in a way for at least being honest and admitting that she is certainly prejudiced against white people, as if that's better. It's unbelievable, really. Of course, she seems to have a special grudge against white dudes. That's probably to be expected. We are persona non grata for folks like Tanya these days. Hey, but don't think you white women get a pass. She seems to have no love for you either. This is a person Wizards of the Coast has proudly used in the past and could conceivably use in the future to determine the final content of their new iteration of D&D. By the way, if you're still holding out hope that this new game will be anything but a train wreck, you're completely nuts. Even if the game is culturally clean by any standard, these consultants, they're going to want to have their opinions heard, like it or not. They're supremely self-serving, so they will find things to nitpick. And Wizards of the Coast won't have the spine to say no to them. So we'll have a final product consisting of flavorless gruel at best, with a handful of blanched, racist seasoning sprinkled throughout. Either way, start making your plans to either go back to previous editions of D&D or to go to something else, like OSR. You're going to have to do it because what's coming down the road ain't going to be pretty. Now, I promised you something about Tanya's nonprofit earlier. Yes, I Need Diverse Games was indeed set up as a 501c3 nonprofit tax-exempt charitable organization in 2016.
But I'm super excited. I called the IRS to find out some other questions because we have a pending application for not-for-profit status or 501c3 pending, and unfortunately they weren't able to tell me about my original question. However, they were able to tell me that I Need Diverse Games was approved for 501c3 status.
But what if I told you that this organization lost its tax-exempt status for not filing their Form 990 tax returns for 3 straight years? By my count, I don't think they've ever filed one tax return, if you do the math. It's very interesting, huh? I wonder why they didn't file. Was it sheer laziness? It certainly seems like Tanya is a bit lazy at times. Was there something else that they didn't want the government to see? There's only a handful of things that you will lose your 501c3 status for. One of those is, of course, not filing your 990 tax returns 3 years in a row. If you're not following your own bylaws and theoretically donations are inuring unduly to the benefit of the person who set up the nonprofit instead of, say, going towards its intended beneficiaries, well, that would also be another reason for revocation of status. I suppose if I wasn't following my own bylaws and was so arrogant that I didn't believe the tax laws of the U.S. applied to me, I might think I could hide my own enrichment by just not filing tax returns. Theoretically, of course, I'm not alleging any wrongdoing at all. To be fair, I Need Diverse Games does mention that they're nonprofit tax-exempt 501c3 status is currently pending reinstatement. But I'm not sure how long that's been up there. It's been 3 years since they lost their status. What I found funny was that they're still accepting donations. Post 2019, any donations received in excess of expenses would be viewed by the IRS as taxable income incurred in her now business, no longer a nonprofit. Take that from an accountant by trade. Wink. I wonder if she's reporting it as such. It would be interesting to see a set of financial statements, but I highly doubt those have ever been prepared. I Need Diverse Games is sort of obscuring the fact that donations are no longer going to a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and they're going instead to a private business. It's supremely misleading, in my opinion, seeing as that disclosure about their 501c3 status pending reinstatement is tucked away at the very bottom of their website. It's almost like they're trying to hide it. Now, maybe that wouldn't matter to the people giving them money, but being open and honest does seem to be the right thing to do. Okay, pause for laughter. I know, we're talking about leftists doing the right thing. Okay. Whether or not the IRS has caught on that this organization is still accepting donations and tracking whether or not this business is reporting taxable income or loss in a Schedule C or other form is, of course, unknown to anyone but Tanya. But it is curious, no? Maybe we'll get a clarification from Tanya. And I sincerely do hope that the business of I Need Diverse Games is obeying all of the tax laws until their tax-exempt status is reinstated. Remember to keep track of that income, Tanya. The IRS may be watching. And if you do get that tax-exempt status reinstated, file your damn tax returns. All right, so that's all for now. I don't think Tanya's alone as far as the nature of cultural consultants. Creative people wouldn't agree to be a licensed censor. They'd be creating their own stuff. And if it was good, it would sell. This is the domain of the talentless hack, who wants everyone to be as unhappy as they are. All right, that's all. This is Double D signing off. And until we meet again, you guys take care.
What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.